and then we'll go into the fears. Fair enough? I'm just going to go to the physical and social heredity, and then we go into the fears. Self-confidence. Anthony, you ready?
Yes, I'm working on getting it live right now.
Well, we can start from the beginning, Matt, if you want. From the beginning. It's about self-confidence. You there?
Yep, I'm here.
All right. Ready, Matt?
Let's rock.
Good evening, folks. Welcome to the Mastermind on the Laws of Success by the great Napoleon Hill. Good evening. My name is Hugo De La Torre, and I welcome you on this May 2019 night. Tonight we're going to talk about self-confidence. Thank you for having me here.
Let's rock.
Good evening, folks. Welcome to the Mastermind on the Laws of Success by the great Napoleon Hill. Good evening. Is there a background noise? Is that background noise, Matt?
Let me mute out.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I just hear a background noise.
Yeah, it's something with this Zoom conference. When you're live on Facebook, you can open up a web browser and watch yourself live on Facebook. So it's a few seconds behind, so it was replaying exactly what you were saying. So anyway, it's over now. Welcome to the Laws of Success, ladies and gentlemen. We're here tonight talking about self-confidence, and in the Law of Success, in 16 lessons, it falls under lesson 2. Before approaching the fundamentals upon which this lesson is founded, it will be of benefit to us to keep in mind the fact that it is practical. It brings us the discoveries of more than 25 years of research, and that was upon, Napoleon Hill's behalf. It has had the approval of the leading scientific men and women of the world who have tested every principle involved. Now,
Yes,
skepticism.
sir.
Yes.
Yeah, skepticism. This thing of skepticism is the deadly enemy of progress and self-development. And you might as well put this book on top of your refrigerator if you think that this thing that we're going to talk about tonight was done by some long-haired hippie or something like that, or some crazy guy like us. You have to understand that this thing was based upon principles that were tested over and over and over.
Now, surely this is no age for the skeptic, because it is an age in which we have seen more than nature's laws uncovered and harnessed than had been discovered in all past history of the human race. Now, within 3 decades, now this was back in the early 1900s, within 3 decades, 30 years of that, from the 1870s on, they had witnessed the mastery of the air. They have explored the ocean. They have all but annihilated distances on the earth. They have harnessed the lightning and made it turn the wheels of industry. They have made 7 blades of grass grow where but 1 grew before. They have instantaneous communication between the nations of the world. Truly, this is an age of illumination and unfoldment, but even more so today. They, at that time, had yet to barely have scratched the surface of knowledge. However, when we shall have unlocked the gate that leads to the secret power which is in store within us, it will bring us knowledge that will make us all past discoveries pale into oblivion by comparison.
I like the way you said that. Thought is the most highly organized form of energy known to man. And so in this day and age where we live in now, Matt, is a lot of people are experimenting, and they want to do some more research so that they can understand this mysterious force that we call thought. and thought is something that's within us, and we have just we have already found enough about the human mind to know that we can throw off all those accumulated superstitious stuff that we've been through generation in the form of fears, and through the aid of this principle of autosuggestion, we can discover that we can eliminate fears, and we can also come to understand that this thing called fear is the reason for poverty and so much failure in this world of strife and sorrow. And it can take forms in so many different ways. The good thing, and this is a great thing, is that the person that can master fear, if you get to master your fears, you will march to success and achievement. And I don't care what the undertaking may be, and I don't care what defeat may come to you.
Well,
tonight we're talking about self-confidence.
Yep, self-confidence. And the development of self-confidence starts with the elimination of this demon called fear. One lady called it to me the FUD monster, the fear, ugliness, and doubt. We have FUD inside of our hearts, fear, ugliness, and doubt. So, no, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I'm sorry. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It was the FUD monster. But the development of self-confidence starts with the elimination of this demon called fear, which sits upon a man's shoulder and whispers into his ear, "You can't do it. You're afraid to try. You are afraid of public opinion. Or you are afraid that you will fail. You are afraid that you have not the ability." That's fear on your shoulder.
Yeah, you know what happens is that this fear gets into close quarters. It can be even a deadly weapon. And scientists has told us this. I mean, if you fear something, you right away you run away from it. So in this lesson on self-confidence, the beauty of life is that we're going to show you like we can have a shield, or this can be like a weapon from those darts of despair and defeat and so-called defeats and all that stuff in this battle of life. And this called fears is like the enemy of progress. So the beauty thing is that here on this course like this, we can learn the basic fears and of mankind, that the things that keep us down and not wanting us to do our best. Like you said, the monkey on your shoulder saying you can't do it, you have no right, you're afraid of what people may say of you. All those kinds of fears.
That's right.
So far, so good, Matt?
Yep. Well, they got the 6 basic fears of mankind, Hugo. You know, every person falls heir to these influences and of the six basic fears. Under these 6 fears may be listed the lesser fears. The 6 basic or major fears are here enumerated, and the sources from which they are believed to have grown are described. Now, the 6 basic fears are the fear of poverty, the fear of old age, the fear of criticism, the fear of loss of love of someone, the fear of ill health, and the fear of death. We study
the question is it. No, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Matt.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, we just study the list and then take inventory of our own fears and ascertain under which of the 6 headings we can classify them. That's all.
Very cool. Take a list. Which one of those 6 pick your interest and go tackle that one. A lot of times when we read those things like that, we can pick the one that's hurting us at that time. You know, every human being who has reached the age of understanding is bound to some form or another by one of the 6 basic fears. And if you want to attain success, the first thing we got to do is we got to eliminate those fears and eradicate them from our life. So it's a good thing to find a source from where did we inherit these fears. I don't know if anybody like to share a thought. 908. Thank you, Matt. So far, so good, brother.
You are very good, gentlemen. My name is Andre Guérin. I'm calling from La Chute, Quebec. And yeah, the 6 basic fear are terrible if this fear manage your life. the thing is, with the law of success, like you teach me, I make a personal inventory of myself, and I go see how much this basic fear affect my life, and I make some action concerning that, and I think it's good today. And I truly enjoy your company, gentlemen. So thank you to be there tonight again.
Thank you, sir. Any other thoughts? Welcome to the call. And for sorry we can't read the post if we are live on Facebook, but we'll stop here and there so that if you join our call, you may share a thought. Ready to rock, Matt?
Yes, sir.
Let us talk about this physical and social heredity. Tell us about that.
Well, all that man is, both physically and mentally, he came through by two forms of heredity. One is known as physical and the other is called social. So there's two kinds of that heredity.
Excellent. To the law of physical heredity, we evolve from an amoeba cell, a single form cell, a single animal form, and to the stages of development corresponding to the animal that we know, and including those that are now extinct, like the dinosaurs and all those animals that came before us. So we know where we came from. We were first fish. We learned to walk. We started going on Earth. Before you know it, the dinosaurs and all that stuff, the monkeys and all this stuff, and then we got to thinking man.
Yeah, and every generation through which man has passed has added to his nature something of the traits, habits, and physical appearances of that generation. Man's physical inheritance, therefore, is a heterogeneous collection of many habits and physical forms.
Well, so then we can see that without any doubt that the six basic fears that we have inherited through our physical heredity, and but also understand that. So now we can understand that these fears are nothing but a mental state of the mind, and therefore this cannot have been transmitted through physical heredity. Fears is a mental state of mind. And yes, your grandparents and your parents might have put some kind of fear in you, but it is obvious. Yes, through the physical heredity, that was the logic place where we got those fears, but we can eliminate that. And we can see that was a place where it was lodged in our head. That's right. Those fears were put in our head by our upbringing, by our parents told us, but you know what we believed at that time to be true.
There seems to be little, if any, doubt that while the six basic fears of man could not have been inherited through physical heredity, these six basic fears being mental states of mind and therefore not capable of transmission through physical heredity, it is obvious that through a physical heredity, a most favorable lodging place for these six fears has been provided. For example,
That's right,
yeah,
forgive me, Matt. Forgive me.
I gotta catch on to the game here. Go ahead, Hugo.
You know, Matt, we can see that it's a well-known fact that the process of our physical evolution has been based upon death, upon destruction, upon pain and cruelty. That, you know, the elements of the soils, it's a transportation by where it goes upward and upward, climbing through evolution. And it's all based on death. in one form or another, so that the higher form can subside. Even vegetation lives by the element of the soil and the element of the air. And we can see that all forms of animal life lives by eating the weaker form, even in the form of vegetation.
The cells of all vegetation have a very high order of intelligence. The cells of all animal life likewise have a very high order of intelligence.
That's right. Undoubtedly, the animal cells, when they were fish, they learned out of bitter experience that they were going to get eaten alive by the bigger fish.
By reason of the fact that many animal forms, including the most of men, live by eating the smaller and weaker animals, the cell intelligence of these animals, which enters into and becomes a part of man, brings with it the fear growing out of their experience in having been eaten alive.
I wonder if somebody there has the book, The Laws of Success, and can go to the page and see what we're trying to do here. We're not the sharpest knife on the block, yet you could still bring the message across. We have to try to tell a story, but we're not perfect. Steve, do you have the book in front of you, Steve?
I don't have
Go
the
ahead,
book in
Matt.
front of me. I was just thinking to step out real quick to go get.
That's okay, brother. But see, what happens is that this theory may sound far-fetched. And in fact, you know what? It might not be true. But at least it's a theory, if nothing more. And the author makes no particular point of telling otherwise as to where this sex speaks is fear. But at least it's an explanation. So why not let us proceed to examine it? And the best way is what we're doing here, to proceed as to, what is this thing called social heredity?
Well, by far the most important of man's makeup comes to him through the law of that social heredity.
Amen.
That this term came from the methods by which one's generation imposes upon the minds of the generation under its immediate control. So it parlays the superstitions, the beliefs, the legends, and ideas, which it in turn inherited from the generation preceding them. So it's just handed down over and over again.
So this term social heredity should be understood to mean that all sources through which we acquire knowledge, from a schooling, from our religious belief, from what we see in nature, from the things that we read, from the conversations that we have, from, storytelling like we're doing here tonight. That's where we get these thought-inspiring thoughts. That's why it's so great to come here. And that's what we, at one point or another, accept as our own personal experiences.
Well, through the law of social heredity, Hugo, anyone having control of the mind of a child may, through intense teaching, plant in that child's mind any idea, whether false or true, in such a manner that this child accepts it as true, and it becomes as much a part of the child's personality as any cell or organ of its physical body.
That is so true. I have two great, wonderful kids, and they know what they want from life, and I can say that statement is true. A mind of a child that has not come to the age of understanding, they're between you're like 2 years old and, let's say, 13, or before 2, their mind is clean. It's so clean that you can implant in the mind a seed that will grow, so to speak, in a way that thing can never be eradicated from there. And yes, it can be eradicated from and wiped out before 2 years old. So be real careful as to what we're telling a child at that age. And because after that, no matter whether it's logical or not, that idea is implanted in their subconscious mind.
Well, many religionists can claim that they can so deeply implant the creeds of their religion into the mind of a child that there can never be room in that mind for any other religion, either in whole or in part.
Yeah, you wonder if that's true or not. But why this explanation of the manner of social hierarchy operates in us as students, we need to examine the source. From where the heck do we get those 6 basic spheres? And more than that, as students that we are, except those that have examined this thing and have put it to test, and then they can say, yes, I have applied these things and I have eradicated from my life the 6 basic spheres. And the thing is, like, you don't have to go outside yourself. You can just look within yourself and find the answers that you need.
Well, fortunately, practically the entire mass of evidence submitted in this lesson is of such a nature that all who sincerely seek the truth may ascertain for themselves whether the evidence is sound or not.
Very cool. I like that. So you test the theory out yourself. Don't just listen to what we're trying to say here. But you know what? For at least for the moment, let us just lay aside all those prejudiced things that we have, all those preconceived ideas. At the end of the day, you can always go back and pick them up at some other time. But while we're here for this next 30 minutes, I don't know how long has it been now, let us just put aside those things, so for at least for the week, as we go into Thursday, and Sundays, that we can come to study the origin as to where do we get those 6 worst enemies, those fears. Let's pause for a second so that this stuff sinks in. You agree, Matt? Or share a thought, please.
Well, the 6 sphere come from very, they are so old. And us, human kind, we are the only animal in the planet who takes so long to walk. You need help when you are a kid. You need help to start to walk. You need help to change your temper and all that stuff. We are the only animal in the planet who is so long to grow correctly. And if you don't got good parent, you catch a lot of fear. And it takes many time to understand where we come from, and the way we are today. We are okay because we got many ways to help ourselves if we want to overpass the fear we got inside us. Social heredity is very it's a big disease. If you don't take care, you catch it and you don't want it, and you have to overpass that. It's very tough. It's very, very tough to understand the 6 basic fear if you don't take a good look at yourself and see where you come from. And for that, I like the law of success because Dr. Hill explained it correctly. Many fear, they give it to you because the people around you or your family, they know only that, and it is superstition. And us, humankind, we know we got some time on this earth. We know we have a date to finalize. We gonna get dead. Animals don't got that. They just live, and after that, they go with their instinct. Not us. Us, we have to overpass many things. And we have to learn how to write, talk, a lot of things when we are young. And if you got a couple of bullies around you, they're gonna give you fear for sure. That's quite normal. They repeat what they learn. So it's the same for us. We repeat what they learn. So changing a mind, well, we need a mastermind to change a mind. Need people around us who gotta make effort to arrive at something with their self, and they got goal and they want to succeed in life in any way. So thank you to listening to me, gentlemen.
Andre,
Amen.
what you're
brother.
saying there. You know, we're talking about the law of self-confidence here, and it's funny, but we're starting out with fear. So the main principle is fear. What are you afraid of? That's the main principle that we're trying to uncover here. So with that, there's 6 basic fears. And we talked about them earlier. The fear of poverty, fear of old age, the fear of criticism, the fear of the loss of love of someone, the fear of ill health, and the fear of death. In Napoleon Hill's later work, he added the fear of loss of freedom to his list of basic fears, which I guess is why it works so good for the, the penitentiary system. So
Let us look more deeply into those fears. For instance, the fear of poverty. It requires courage to tell the truth about the origin of this fear. And it still takes greater courage, perhaps, to accept the truth after it has been told. We see this fear that we have of poverty, it grows out of the inherent tendency of when people used to prey upon each other's mate. And even before that, the forms of lower animal, they took action by instinct. And the thing is that now thinking man has the power to think. And for this reason, we no longer prey on another physically. We have a superior sense of intuition. We have this thing called thought, and we have this thing called reason. And nowadays, we don't eat his fellow man bodily. They get more satisfaction out of eating people financially.
well, of all the ages of the world which we know anything, the age in which we live seems to be the age of money worship. A man is considered less than the dust of earth unless he can display a fat bank account. Nothing brings man so much suffering and humiliation as does poverty. No wonder man fears poverty. Through a long line of inherited experiences with the man-animal, man has learned for certain that this animal cannot always be trusted where matters of money and other evidences of earthly possessions are concerned.
That's right. The animal, the other animal, you got to fear it. But us man, we got to fear what we do with those monies. Many marriages end up, or I should say began or end, because solely on the fact of that one has wealth and the other one does not, or by what one possesses or the other one does not. And you wonder why the divorce courts are so full. No wonder we fear this thing of poverty.
Well, society could quite properly be spelled society with the dollar sign because it is inseparably associated with the dollar mark. So eager is man to possess wealth that he will acquire it whatever manner he can, through legal methods if possible and through other methods if he can.
You got that right. This fear of poverty is a terrible, terrible thing, brother.
Well, a man can commit murder, he can engage in robbery, rape, and all other manner of violation of the rights of others and still regain a high station in the minds of his fellow men, providing always that he does not lose his wealth. Poverty, therefore, is a crime, an unforgivable sin, as it were.
No wonder we fear it, man. No wonder we fear it.
Well, every statute in the book in the world bears evidence that the fear of poverty is one of the 6 basic fears of mankind. For in every such book of law may be found various and sundry laws intended to protect the weak from the strong. To spend time trying to prove either that the fear of poverty is one of man's inherited fears, or that this fear has its origin in man's nature to cheat his fellow man, would be similar to trying to prove that 3 times 2 are 6. Obviously, no man would ever fear poverty if he had any grounds for trusting his fellow man. For there is food and shelter and raiment and luxury of every nature sufficient for the needs of every person on earth. And all these blessings would be enjoyed by every person except for the swinish habit that man has of trying to push all the other swine out of the trough, even after he has all and more than he needs.
And that brings us to 9:30. Great job, Matt. I'm proud of you, bro. You're getting a workout tonight. Share a thought, please.
Well, that's just the very first fear, the fear of poverty, and that's a pretty big one, you know. I know that I spend a lot of my time worrying about success, or maybe not worrying about success so much as worrying about poverty. So I try to stay focused on success because I don't want negative thoughts in my mind. So that's my thought.
Yep. The fear of poverty can froze a man for his life. He never take a risk, never buy a house. He stay like he are and he's happy with it. Or he think he is happy with it. He gonna choose a mate who think the same and he gonna raise his kid with the same mentality. It's very tough to overpass that when you are raised in that kind of family, you know. And the best way I understand the law of success in the sixth sphere is you have to be organized to don't get organized. So it's possible to with the mastermind to pass over the fear of poverty because you're gonna have some people pushing you in the back, and maybe you're gonna get some failure, but if you don't try, you never risk. You know, if you don't make something to change, you're gonna still the same. So it's for that the mastermind is so important, and to overpass all that fear in your life and take the time to be organized with other people to manage something to get better in life. Thank you very much.
Very cool. Very cool. You know, the laws of successful, you mentioned, Matt, that he added another law. And, would anybody else like to share a thought? Forgive me. Please do so. All right, let us continue. 9:32. I was saying that I felt a pinch of poverty at the age of 13. It's a wonder how it took me 30 years to eradicate it from my life. You know, this fear of poverty is closely related with the habit of savings, which is coming up next week. Yes, the habit of savings. Come to find out that 98% of the people do not save money because they have the fear of poverty. We spend more than we have because we fear that tomorrow we may not have. And for that reason, we don't put any pennies away. And when opportunity presents itself, we don't have the money there. But as to what I was saying, Matt, you know, I feel, forgive me, there goes with the eye. The fear of criticism comes right at the age of 13 too, when you're in school and you worry about what they may say. So I wonder if we should go to the fear of criticism, or you want to follow the test, Matt? You follow, you lead, I follow. You there, Matt?
Yeah, I must have missed something. What do you need? What did you say?
We go with the fear of old age.
Yep, in
Or
the
the fear of
main,
criticism.
this fear grows out of 2 sources, Hugo. The thought that old age may bring with it poverty, you know? I'm getting older myself. I feel it. I'm sure other people feel it. The fear of old age brings with it the fear of poverty.
Well,
By
yeah.
far most, by far most, the reason why we feel old age is because there's this false and this cruel teaching that is so mixed with this brim and fire that after we pass this place, we're going to go to this purgatory where there's going to be a boogeyman there. No wonder we learn to feel old age, because at the time it means that we're approaching another place, and possibly such a freaking horrible place that worse than the one that we're living here now, depending on how you look at life.
Yep, this one's not so bad, right?
You got that right.
In the basic fear of old age, man has two very sound reasons for his apprehension. The one growing out of distrust of his fellow men, who may seize whatever worldly goods he may possess, and the other arising from the terrible pictures of the world to come, which were deeply planted in his mind through the law of social heredity long before he came into possession of that mind.
It's no wonder we fear as we get old. No wonder. It's a mastermind. At any time, you can stop us and share a thought. This fear of criticism, how we acquire this basic fear, it's pretty hard, if not impossible, or how to determine. But we can see that it has developed in many different forms.
Some believe that this fear made its appearance in the mind of man about the time that politics came into existence. Others believe that source can be traced no further than the first meeting of an organization known as the Women's Club. Still another school of humorists charges the origin of the contents of the Holy Bible, whose pages abound with some very vitriolic and violent forms of criticism, if the latter claim is correct. And those who believe literally all that we find in the Bible are not mistaken, then God is responsible for man's inherent fear of criticism because God caused the Bible to be written.
That's just a foolish thought. We're not here to be like a prophet, neither was the author as he was making this statement. But we can see this, we're just ordinary people in this world. And we can see that we can attribute those six basic fears mostly to criticism. That one may criticize you because someone may want to take your goods and your wares and then justify their actions by putting you down and putting your character down.
Well, the fear of criticism takes on many different forms, the majority of which are petty and trivial in nature, even to the extent of being childish in the extreme.
That is true. That's one of the reasons some people back then used to use hats. I'm kind of going bald, but I can see why I would put a hat so you don't think that I can see it. I'm proud to be Colombian, by the way. And that's right, men wore hats back then, not because they needed it or not because it was comfortable. It was just because everybody else was doing it. And what happens is this, they did it because otherwise you're going to get criticized. And before you know it, the hat puts a sting on your leg, and before you know it, you're going bald before you have to. Matt, you going bald? Stop worrying.
Well, women seldom have bald heads or even thin hair because they wear hats that are loose, the only purpose of which is to make an appearance. It must not be imagined that women are free from the fear of criticism associated with hats. If any woman claims to be superior to man with reference to this fear, ask her to walk down the street wearing a hat that is 1 or 2 seasons out of style.
That's what happened to the makers of clothes too. You want to wear that nice jean, you want to wear that nice nightshirt, you want to wear the good clothes. And what happens is if you don't have the latest Nikes or the latest this, then you're behind the trend. And the manufacturers of clothes picked up on this because look how much clothes they're selling us. And you have a closet full of things that you don't wear.
Well, for the same reason, the manufacturers of automobiles change styles every season, Hugo.
That is true. If this not will be true, let us look at our own experience. And let us stop here for a second and say, look, this is Napoleon Hill speaking through us. So as we speak, let us think of Napoleon Hill bringing this message through us. At the end of the day, the Laws of Success was built on lectures that he went around and taught other people. So as you listen to us, 9:39, 40 minutes, you will see how he's trying to influence our subconscious mind. So as we go through our daily life, we can start acting in ways that we cannot even comprehend. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
So we've been over a couple different laws, or we've been over this law of self-confidence, and we've been over a couple different fears. The fear of old age, the fear of criticism, the fear of poverty. Brings us to the fear of loss of love of someone. This is a fear that originated with little description. It's obvious that it grew out of man's nature to steal his fellow man's wife, or at least to take liberties with her, unknown to her rightful lord and master, which we don't mean to say lord and master in this day and age. By nature, all men are polygamous, the statement of a truth which will, of course, bring denials from those who are either too old to function in a normal way sexually, or have from some other cause lost the contents of certain glands which are responsible for man's tendency toward the plurality of the opposite sex.
That sounds pretty interesting. You know, it's seen by little doubt that this thing called jealousy and takes all kinds of forms, and it becomes insanity. And to think that it grows out of a man's inherited fear of losing someone that he loves.
Well, one of the sane fools that represented by a man who become jealous of some woman of all the same fools that represented by a man who has become jealous of some woman, or that of a woman who has become jealous of some man, is the oddest and strangest. The author, unfortunately, never had but one case of personal experience with this form of insanity. But from that experience, he learned enough to justify him in stating that the fear of the loss of love of someone is one of the most painful, if not in fact the most painful of all the 6 basic fears. And it seems reasonable to add that this fear plays more havoc with the human mind than do any of the other 6 basic fears, often leading to the more violent forms of permanent insanity.
Love. Love, love, love. You know, when you give love, you add into life. And there's always a compensation. So if for whatever reason you thought that you lost someone that you love, when it was in that stuff of loving, is when you give love that you receive love back in return. And there's a law of compensation that says for every action, deed, or act that you do, there will be a compensation. So if for whatever reason you fear losing someone that you love, whether it's your parent, your brother, or whatever it may be, there'll be someone else that will be there to substitute it. In Napoleon Hill's life, his story was his stepmother. He lost his mother at a very young age, but it was his stepmother that inducing him to sit down in a typewriter instead of spending his time over there playing with guns or whatever, to sit down and find a passion for something. And let us give thanks for that lady, because tonight we reading exactly the same thing that the love of that woman did on him. And we want to thank Napoleon Hill and the Hill Foundation and everything related to Napoleon Hill, because that's what we hear about. This fear of ill health. Tell us about that, Matt.
Well, this fear has its
944.
origin to considerable extent also in the same sources from which the fear of poverty and old age are derived. The fear of ill health
That's
must
right.
need be closely associated with both poverty and old age because it also leads towards the borderline of terrible worlds, of which man knows not, but of which he has heard some discomforting stories.
You know, these people that sell help. You wonder if they don't spend a considerable time putting fears in other so that you can buy the little pill.
Well, for longer than the record of the human race can be relied upon, the world is known of various and sundry forms of therapy and health purveyors. If a man gains his living from keeping people in good health, it seems but natural that he would use every means at his command for persuading people that they needed his services. Thus, in time, it might be that people would inherit a fear of ill health.
No kidding. And last but not least, we still got another 5 minutes before we have an open table. This fear of death. You know, this is the worst of all the 6 basic fears. And the reason being, because it becomes obvious to us as students that there's a psychology behind it. You know, this thing about fears, it can be related exactly to the religious upbringing as a source by where we get this fear as to where we're going.
Well, the 6th and the last of the 6 basic fears is the fear of death, Hugo. To many, this is the worst of all the 6 basic fears, and the reason why it is so regarded becomes obvious to even the casual student of psychology.
The terrible pangs of fear associated with it may be, again, charged directly to those religious fanatics, the source from which are responsible for it. That's where we get the source, and that's where it is combined.
So-called heathen are not as much afraid of death as are the civilized, especially that portion of the civilized population which has come under the influence of theology.
You know, for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, you know, we've been all asking the same question. I mean, where do we come from? Whence? And where are we going? That's the question.
Well, the more cunning and crafty, as well the honest but credulous of the race, have not been slow to offer the answer to these questions. In fact, the answering of these questions has become one of the so-called learned professions, despite the fact that but little learning is required to enter this profession.
Yeah, think of this one. There's a guy there saying, come into my tent. Embrace my faith here. Accept my dogmas. And yes, please pay my salary. And I will give you a ticket to gonna make you straight into the heavens after you die. And then right after you leave that church, you go to the next one, and another leader is saying, remain outside my tent, and you're going to go directly to hell. And you're going to burn there for eternity. He can't provide a self-passage. How can he say of such provisions? How can he tell someone that's seeking truth that he's going to go to hell? How can you tell somebody such terrible things? And yet people take a hold of the minds of others and they put a fear on you. No wonder we fear death. And you know what? Matt, go ahead.
Well, that's great. I mean, I appreciate you sharing that. That wraps up our 6 basic fears for the night. I feel to go any further in this tonight will just be to beat it a little bit. We've covered some good ground. So, you know, you're able to ascertain from our brief discussion that, you know, the law of self-confidence is rooted in your basic fears. So perhaps if we discover our basic fears, then we can overcome our self-confidence issues, perhaps. That's my thought.
Thank you, Matt. The fear of death, nobody know where you go when you get dead, and I don't know, nobody come back to tell me. But the only thing I know is people who love us gonna miss us when we get dead. That's for sure, and that's a good way to overpass that fear. You know, to be good in this life. And all religion are good. Well, maybe yes, maybe no. But if you feel comfortable in one and you do good in one and you do good for your neighbor, well, stay on it. It's all right for me. Doesn't matter. The thing is, the fear of poverty is all related around the fear of death and all that stuff because. Well, the six basic fear are very, very important to try to throwing out of you, you know, and take and catch you when you know you are run by this one of this fear, because they're not good counselor, you know, they're not good counselor, and it's gonna cost you a lot, especially the one when you lose someone you love. It's a big price to pay to know you was loving somebody, you know, and she don't love you no more, or he don't love you no more. This thing happen in life, and if you put all your soul in somebody, and she go away or he go away, you better learn to live with yourself first, and you know, love is a hack of intelligence. You have to choose the good one and the good one to arrive at something good in a couple. It's very people go many times too fast, and they put their absolute in somebody they don't know. So you know, long frequentation the whole way is always good to know before you make a couple with somebody. So the basic fear, yeah, we have to overpass it and catch. Personally, I like to catch myself when a fear is running me. So thank you very much. It was a very nice call again, gentlemen.
Thank you, Andre.
All right, here you go.
It's a round table. So everybody, please do share a thought. Here's a couple of points to ponder from the laws of success in the law of self-confidence. You know, remember that when you make an appointment with someone, that you assume responsibility and that you will be punctual, and that you have no right to be 1 minute late. That's a good. The Japanese have that great rule. You know, if they have an appointment at 9 o'clock on Monday and they can't make it, it's most likely that they'll be calling you on a Wednesday, the week before, to tell you that they can't make it. They will never just not make an appointment. That's just not in their nature to do. Also, you know, within your soul, there has been deposited a seed of a great fortune, and that the seed will never germinate and much less grow to maturity, except, and you got to understand that you have to render some kind of useful service. You have to. There's no such thing as something for nothing. And last but not least, you know, you are fortunate if you have learned the difference between this temporary defeat and failure, and more fortunate still if you have learned the truth that, you know, for every failure, for every so-called defeat, there is a seed of success dormant in every defeat that we meet or every experience that we have. So don't take this failure so lightly. It's most likely that it just has been temporary defeat, something that we needed to learn to get to the next step. And you can only do that to having self-confidence in yourself. Do share a thought. You know, there's another way to eliminate fears. Fears are nothing but false expectations appearing real. And when a fear comes into your life, you can eliminate that by the 10. I mean, look at that fear and see from 1 to 10, when that has that happened in your life. Has it really happened that you can consider it a 10? Or has it only reached a 3, 4, or whatever? Or has it really happened? Because a lot of times things has happened in our life. But if you look at that and then you can see that, well, that really never happened in my life. And then what is most likely to happen? Well, I don't know. For instance, I used to live in a big story building, and there were sharks in the ocean all the time, and I can see the sharks going through the middle of the people. And if I sit up there screaming at people, they think you're crazy. And but the question is, would you go in the water after you see that? Well, every morning I did my best. I did go into the water in a paddle, and I go 30 feet out there and come back, and that stuff was always in my mind, but I didn't let it fear. And the other thing is, like, yes, when you have a negative emotion or something that you consider fears, go to the 10 and start going 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Then before you get to 5, you say, I don't believe in that. And by the time you get to 7, stop thinking of the stuff. Stop concentrating your thoughts on the things that you want from life. And before you know it, the little monkey that we talked, he just runs away. He disappears. Thank you very much, Matt. You got the last word. What do we got going on Thursday? And you have the last word. Or whoever wants to share a thought before we leave the call. And the last one, just say a prayer at the end. Thank you.
I think I always take like how Thomas Edison said, he didn't fail. He just found 10,000 ways that it didn't work. You know, so that just proves that if you just keep, getting up and keep trying to chip away at that tree in the front yard, one day at a time, one hack at a time, then eventually the goal, which is the tree falling, is what's going to happen. You just take it one chip at a time, one step at a time. To overcome that fear of failure.
Yeah, to take it one step at a time is a good thought process. You can't overwhelm yourself with too much change. One of the things I learned in my life was to allow positive choices to influence my life, do daily things that were important, do small choices that made a difference and a daily impact. And over the course of time, it's brought itself full circle to where life is better than it used to be. So I agree with those daily choices. And I think that self-confidence in and of itself is the core seat of the power that you can put forward in enthusiasm. I mean, if you're not self-confident, I don't know how you're going to practice the other law of enthusiasm. If you're not self-confident, I don't know how you're going to practice the habit of saving or take initiative and leadership. So that's why it's so high on the list, as the next principle. So I think that once we realize what it kind of taught us, that self-confidence is nothing more than our fears manifesting, and it's given us the 6 basic fears, we can take time to look at those fears and, to strengthen ourselves up a little bit. So thank you.
Yeah. Those who say they can and those who say they can't are both usually right.
That's right. Henry Ford fan.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Self-confidence.
Keep going, Steve. Keep going, brother. They say that the last one that speaks is the public speaker. Keep going, brother. Tell us what you do. Tell us what you have a passion for. Tell us a little bit about yourself, brother. We still got a few minutes left.
All right. I'm Steve. I'm 29 years old. I'm from West Palm Beach. Just trying to change, make an impact on someone's life one day at a time, one person at a time. Just as long as I make a positive impact on somebody, I'm making progress. So every day, even if it's just opening the door for someone or just making them smile or, you know, making them laugh, then that's all I'm about. I'm here to, you know, I might not be the happiest guy all the time, but I try to make it so where everybody could get a little piece of the happiness and know that there are some good people out there. And if you just continue on, just telling them to pass it forward and open the door for someone else or make someone else laugh or smile, then we could change this world together, you know, one person at a time. So
So true, man.
that's
So
me,
true. Very nice, my friend.
motivating.
Any other thoughts?
O divine providence, I ask not for more riches, but for more wisdom with which to use the wisdom you gave me at birth, consisting in the power to control and direct my own mind to the ends of my own choosing. Amen.
Amen. We need self-confidence to do
Amen.
the prayer. Yep.
All right. Look forward to seeing you on Thursday as we keep diving in this law of self-confidence. We have a speaker guest that's going to come and join us, and he will be talking about self-confidence. So we look forward to seeing you on Thursday, 9 p.m.
You guys be safe, all right?
Yep. Take care,
Take
my
care.
friend. Ciao,
Bye-bye.
Hugo. Matt. And everything is all right. Ciao, ciao.